2.7 Distributive property. Terms are the parts of an expression that are separated by addition and subtraction symbols. Remember though that we change our subtraction symbols to adding the opposite. So it's really just the parts that after we do that are added together. Like terms have identical variable parts raised to the same power. For example, 5x and negative 10x are like terms because they both have an x. But it also has to be to the same power. So for example, 5x and negative 10x squared are not like terms because they have different powers. One's a square, one's not. So they are not like terms. Coefficient is the number part of a term that includes a variable. For example, 5x is a variable term. Just the 5 is the coefficient. Again, just the number part, just the 5. I always remember this because it sounds like a co-worker. The 5 and the x are working together. So coefficient, co-worker, it's the number part of a variable term. Constant term is a term that has a number but no variable. So in my expression 10x plus 5, it's just the 5. It's just the number part, the number. There is no variable with it. You will see these terms and you will hear these terms a lot throughout the next year and beyond. Please make sure that you learn them. They will be on your test. We are going to skip example 1 for now. So skip over example 1. Let's talk about the distributive property. Here's what it looks like. And let's go to the numbers. It's easier to understand. This is 9 groups, essentially, of 2 plus 6. So you can think of it as being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 groups, and inside the groups is 2 plus 6. 2 plus 6. So what that means is how many 2's are there? Well, there are 9 2's. And how many 6's are there? There are 9 6's. You can see the 9 is being multiplied by the 2 and the 9 is being multiplied to the 6. Okay, the number on the outside is telling you how many groups, and the inside 2 numbers tells you how many or what's inside the groups. And again, the distributive property for this one would be 8 times 7 and then 8 again times 1. The minus sign is in between, and at this point we can change it to adding the opposite. So example 2, using the distributive property. Why we use it is because sometimes there's going to be a variable inside the parentheses. So we need to make sure that we can simplify it or solve it until we can't solve anymore. So there's negative 4 times a. We are passing out the negative 4 twice. Let's add that. Negative 4 again times 13. There are 2 numbers inside the parentheses, so there's going to be 2 negative 4's. Now, negative 4a you can't solve, but you can multiply 13 times negative 4, which is negative 52. This is your answer. You cannot add the negative 4a with the negative 52. This has an a, this does not have an a, so they're unlike or not like terms. So remember, you are not going to get a single number. For B, let's change our subtraction to adding the opposite. Now we're going to use the distributive property. 5 times 3 plus 5 again. Remember, we're passing out the 5, so you're going to see the 5 a lot. Times negative 11 plus 5 one more time because we still have a negative 7 inside. So 5 times 3 is 15. Remember, we turned this to adding the opposite. So this is adding, and it's going to be negative 55. And 5 times negative 7 is negative 35. Now we can add them together. And there they go, they added the opposite. And when we add, we get negative 75. Remember, there are different signs first, so you have to subtract. Then you'll get a negative answer, and then you can just add. We're going to skip guided practice because we didn't do that part. Except, let's go to 3, 4, 5, and 6. Remember, distributive property tells you how many groups there are. So if it's easier for you to make 3 groups and put the 8 plus 16 inside of those groups, that's fine. However, you need to remember that there's a negative here. So you need to do, there's negative 3. So think of these as negative bubbles if you can, or circles. Negative 3 times 8 plus negative 3 times 16. Please pause the video and simplify the problem, or solve it until you can't solve it anymore. For number 3, 3 times 8 is negative 24. 3 times 16, and it's negative, is negative 48. Add those two together because they're the same sign. You have negative 72. For number 4, this is a negative, so negative 5 times negative 2 plus negative 19. You're probably thinking, can't I just add this together in the middle, in the parentheses? Sure, you could do that. But remember, sometimes they're going to put a variable, so you need to know how to distribute the number on the outside. So 5 groups, so negative 5 times negative 2 plus negative 5 times negative 19. You have positive 10, and then 2 negatives also make a positive, so positive 95, add it together to get 105. For number 5, change subtraction to adding the opposite. Now you have to distribute. Again, if you need to, make the circles. There's an x and a plus negative 7. So how many x's you have? 2 x's. And then how many negative 7's? Well, 2 negative 7's. So multiply that. Can't do anything with the 2 times x. This is negative 14. This 2 has an x, so I can't add 2x with the negative 14. That's my answer. Again, I added the opposite, but that's the same thing as subtracting. So both are right. 6. Distribute the negative 6 to the t. Plus sign. Negative 6 again to the 15. Can't do anything with negative 6 times t, but I can multiply 6 times 15. Take a second to do it on the side of the paper if you haven't done it already. That's negative 90. Well, this has a t and this one doesn't, so I'm done. And again, adding the opposite is the same thing as subtracting. Let's talk about combining like terms. Combining just means to add. Okay, so we're just going to add like terms together. Remember, like terms have the same variable part. It also could mean that there is no variable. Part A, separate the sides. This is the problem, the right side is the solution. Well, I have a 4, 6a, 5a. These two both have a's, so I'm going to circle them. That's what I can add together. Now, they're going to use the distributive property to show you how to do this. Before I show you what they're going to do, all you really have to do is take 6 plus 5, which is 11, and then the a's are what's in common, so that's only one a. So you only need one a there. So 11a, bring down the 4. What they're going to do is, because a's are in common, they're going to take that 1a out. So that's distributive property. And then you can add just like I did on the left. Again, this is your answer. 4 does not have an a, but 11 does have an a, so you cannot add them together. You cannot combine them. Part B. I have lots of variables, but only negative 10x and 3x are in common. I would get in the habit of circling the like terms, or sometimes you might see me put parentheses around them, just so I know what I can combine together. Again, I'm just going to do it without distributive property, and you can see what it looks like on the right. Negative 10 plus 3 is negative 7. They have an x in common. Remember, only one x in common. Plus 8y. You can see what they did was they took out the x and are left with the numbers, which are called coefficients, and then they simplified. This is my answer because there's an x and a y. They are unlike, so you cannot combine them. For part 4, you should notice that this is distributive property, which means I always have to do distributive property first. Okay? Distributive property always comes first. If you see distributive property, it's a number next to parentheses, that needs to be simplified first. So 2 times 9, and then 2 times n. Well, 2 times 9 plus 2 times n. That's 18 plus 2n. Now, do you see anything that are like terms? Well, these two both have an n. So let's do 2 plus 3, which is 5n. Bring down the 18. This is my answer. If at any point you get confused, please make sure you pause the video and raise your hand to ask questions if you're in class. Part B. Negative 7 times 3. Did you see that this is distributive property, first of all? And let's change the subtraction and the opposite. Now do negative 7 times 3. Y, make sure you bring down that y, plus another negative 7 times negative 1. You can multiply negative 7 and 3. Multiplying is not combining, so you can multiply. It is negative 21y plus negative 7 times negative 1 is positive 7. Okay, first of all, let's add this opposite. I am now going to move the 7 and the y because I'm going to try to put all of my like terms next to each other. So I'm just going to flip those two numbers, or terms. Y is a variable. So now what I have is here, I'm going to put parentheses, and then over the like terms. Let's add that opposite. So you can see that negative 21y plus y, there's a 1 here, so what's negative 21 plus 1? Negative 20y plus 7 plus negative 2, subtract, is 5. That's your answer. One has a y, one doesn't. Please pause the video at this time. Remember to combine, which is adding like terms. Okay, parts that are the same. You are probably not going to get a single number. Pause the video. For number 7, let's add this opposite, change subtractions. First thing I always do, and then it's distributive property. We are doing 3 plus negative 11, which is subtraction. So you have 8, and they have an x in common. 8x is your answer. Remember to check your sign, because it's negative 11 was bigger, had a bigger absolute value, so it's negative 8x. For number 8, let's add the opposite. I am going to just circle the ones that are in common. That's negative 9a plus 8b. Does it have any other b's? And there is no other constants. That's your answer. Add these opposites. This is distributive property. 6t plus 6 times negative 7 plus negative t plus 12. Add the t's, which is 5t, add the numbers,